Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is a really great time at the movies, and it's a movie that if you told me years ago I'd be reviewing a Sonic movie, let alone a third Sonic movie, and giving it good reviews, I'd probably think that seems like a stretch. I remember in elementary school thinking Sonic would be a great story. There's such great video game stories that when you're a kid, and you like a video game or you like a character like Mario or Pokemon, you could imagine making a story out of this. They're really great, iconic characters, and the world that is built in this movie is just great. There have already been 2 Sonic films. I've seen both of them. They're both appropriate daytime viewing. I rarely go to the movies during the day, but I saw both of those movies during the day, and they were really just enjoyable movies. Like, they're kids' movies, but they're done in a way that isn't talking down to kids, and they're movies that, if you're seeing as an adult, you can also enjoy. And I think that's the best thing about Sonic. Sonic does everything right that a movie of its genre should. And if you compare it to Mufasa the Lion King, which came out the same day, and they're both the big Christmas releases, this and Nosferatu, this and Mufasa are actually claiming the IMAX and RPX and 4DX screens over Nosferatu, and I'm thinking, who would rather see Mufasa than Nosferatu in IMAX? It's just something I've been thinking. All the Mufasa showings in IMAX have been not even sold out. Maybe just a couple people go. I went to see Nosferatu, and then I got to see Mufasa. I walked into the IMAX theater, no one was in there. It's just not as good. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is a lot of fun, and it does everything right that Mufasa does wrong. It's entertaining. It looks great. There's plenty of jokes. There's humor in it. There's emotion that works, and it's not too much emotion for kids. It's just the perfect amount. I think at the end of the day, though, what this does right is it builds an entertaining story that's fun to watch. It looks really good, and it's just a great time. Whereas, again, if you compare this to Mufasa, that movie has none of that. That movie looks bad, it isn't as funny at all, and it's so forced. Sonic doesn't have forced jokes. Yes, there are a couple quips that you might think they put that in there for the kids, but mostly you have stuff that's being done for everyone, and it's just so great. The whole Jim Carrey playing 2 roles here is, I'm not kidding, Oscar bait. He's great in this movie. And just the fact that we get Jim Carrey as the villain in this movie is absolutely perfect. This movie has a wonderful villain. Just casting him in 2020 Sonic the Hedgehog as Dr. Robotnik was a great choice, because it's so hard to adapt that specific character with a very distinct style. I mean, he's skinny legs, huge body, huge mustache, he's a cartoon character. And if anyone's going to play a cartoon character, it's Jim Carrey. And now you have Jim Carrey in 2 roles. So I want to get into this movie today and talk about what makes it so good. Really, what the Sonic movies do that are better than Mufasa, for example, or just hold up this movie as being a great kids movie in general, is how it treats its film like a real film. And that goes for structure, for tone, for style. The pacing and structure of this movie is great. It opens with this intense sequence where we're in an underground lab, and we see that Shadow the Hedgehog, voiced by Keanu Reeves, has been kept here for years. We don't really know this, I think someone might say, but then he breaks out, there's an escape, and you don't know who let him out, but you know someone is probably behind this. It's a really great opening scene that hooks your attention. Whereas if you compare this to Mufasa, that whole opening is so convoluted. We're jumping back and forth between the present and then the past, and there's just no emotional hook. Also, I just, honestly can't get behind the Lion King. They just don't look real. They are animals with, these just photorealistic smiles. It just doesn't work. Sonic, they are these obviously animated characters, but they're cute. They're fun to look at, like Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic. I like how each of them have kind of been established in the prior films, so now they're just they're buddies, they're Team Sonic, and it's just entertaining to get to watch them work together. You even have Tika Sumpter and James Marsden, who don't really need to be in this. They kind of provide that human POV, which so many of these animated films do. It worked in the first Sonic when, you got to see that he was a police officer who met Sonic and befriended him, and it still works here. They act as these parental figures to Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. And then when the movie needs an emotional beat, later on in the movie, I don't really want to give anything away, those characters come into play, and it isn't so overdramatic or forced. I think this movie just does everything right when it comes to having an entertaining movie. And like I was saying, the way it's paced is great. You get this introduction to Shadow, then we cut to Team Sonic living with James Marsden and his wife, and it's just fun to see them interacting. And then right away, we have the military, GUN. They're the, fictional military organization in this movie. Kristen Ritter joins, and she's now a general, and she wants them to take down Shadow. He's this hedgehog who appears in Tokyo, I think, and he's just wreaking havoc. And the action is great. I mean, I don't think it's, amazing, but for what we're getting for a kids movie, they really went all out to make this action look fantastic. Everything from Shadow the Hedgehog shooting guns to riding a motorcycle on the neon-lit skyline. It just looks really cool. I saw it in RPX, and I kept thinking to myself, this movie has no, it doesn't need to look this good, yet it does. It kind of reminded me of A Quiet Place Day One, where I was thinking this will just be kind of an average movie, but I was surprised with, how much effort they put into the visual style, and it really just leaves a lasting impression. And the emotional through line of this movie is really good. Every character serves a purpose, which is something I can't really say for Mufasa, where Mufasa, it's really just, cameos and Easter eggs and giving us references. I don't give a shit about Rafiki. I don't need to know where he got his cane or, why Zazu's there. It's just all filler because Disney has these famous characters and they think, oh, this is cute. But I actually like this movie a lot more because of how the characters all carry purpose. There's Stone, the assistant to Dr. Robotnik, and he has this great arc where he just wants to be friends with Dr. Robotnik, and, Dr. Robotnik looks at them like they're just they're work partners, and Jim Carrey's just great at this. He plays this, he's funny, but he plays a jerk villain really well. And they've been doing this since the first Sonic movie where he's kind of his assistant, and you got the sense that they would always, riff off each other. It was a good buddy dynamic. But now they're really playing into this theme of, he wants to be friends. It's not like they just use this for riffing and that's it. No, they actually build a story off of these two characters, and it's really good. And then on top of that, you have the villain, and I kind of want to give spoilers now because it's hard not to, with Gerald Robotnik. That's the grandfather of Dr. Robotnik, and it's Jim Carrey versus Jim Carrey. It's just such a brilliant choice. You can't go wrong with Jim Carrey in two roles, and then he's riffing off of himself, and it's just so funny. But it's really just a brilliant structure, and I mean, it's maybe not, Shakespeare. It's just really great for this type of movie. You have two Jim Carreys, you have this emotional through line with his assistant who's been here since the first two. You then have Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic who come to conflict later in the movie because they all have different approaches to taking down Shadow. And I really just liked it. There's plenty of conflict, there's plenty of funny moments, it looks great, and there's emotion. It's really got everything you want in a kid's movie, and at the same time, none of the humor really feels forced because once Jim Carrey's in it, and he's just himself, he's perfect. It makes me think you really couldn't have cast a better Dr. Robotnik. I don't know who else would be great, but I mean, he just really nails this role and definitely is a huge reason this movie's so great. But again, I can't really underestimate all the animation and the direction from Jeff Fowler. It really made me think that when you're making a movie like this, it really does matter, the direction. I was thinking of Mufasa and just thinking how that movie had some really cool shots, but most of it just was boring. It's just lions walking around. This movie has incredibly sick shots of the hedgehog riding on a motorcycle through the streets or on a bridge or off a building, or the whole final battle is just insane. This movie keeps escalating and it never feels like it's gone too far. They eventually end up in space on a space station with a laser that could destroy the entire world. But for a kids movie, the stakes there are so good. It's a world-ending stake. This is a laser that could take out humanity. And I mean, I think if you're watching a kids movie, yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Now, you might see that in Avengers, we've seen this so many times, but just for Jim Carrey to be riffing off of also Jim Carrey and gonna destroy the world with this laser, and then you have the hedgehogs teaming up to stop him, and then on top of that, there's this redemptive arc with Jim Carrey's Dr. Robotnik, and it's just such a great full circle moment. I really just think this is a great story. I'm just very excited to see what they do with Sonic 4. And it's just a great example of how you can make an entertaining kids movie without diluting it for general audiences. You can make something kids and adults are going to appreciate and have a great time watching. I mean, there are so many great one-liners in here from Jim Carrey. Even Sonic and James Marsden say a couple funny things. It's just very entertaining. I liked it so much more than Mufasa. And it was a great last movie of 2024. So guys, let me know what you think of Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Thank you so much for watching.